The polar bear's white coat and great size are not its only adaptations to life in the Arctic. It gets a good grip on the ice with long, sharp claws and a layer of thick hair on the soles, which also makes them excellent paddles in the water. For the polar bear spends a lot of time swimming during the summer. Ringed seals are much hunted by polar bears, and when they haul themselves out on the ice, they must be constantly on the alert. They have to have regular holes in the ice through which they can leave the water, or at least stick up their heads in order to breathe. A polar bear will wait for many hours, motionless, beside such a hole. They also stalk seals that are rash enough to lie out on the ice. The polar bear has lost, but about once in every 5 hunting days it does kill, and that is enough. The most powerful and effective hunter of all, however, on the northern ice is man. Eskimo, or Inuit as they prefer to call themselves, came up to the Arctic in very early times. Superb hunters, they were able to live for many months during the winter on nothing whatever but raw meat. They were so skilled at the techniques of living out on the ice that with nothing more than a knife of bone, they could make a waterproof house from snow within an hour or so. A slab of sea ice made a window. Inside, the igloo was lit with lamps fed by seal blubber. Heat from the flame and from their own bodies could raise the temperature sufficiently for them to remove their heavy clothing and relax. It was a life of extraordinary rigour and privation. These pictures were taken 20 years ago. No Eskimo lives in this way today. The poles have not always been so cold. One explanation of why they've become so concerns the warming effects of ocean currents. If they can circulate the waters of the polar seas down towards the equator, they would keep them relatively warm. And maybe they did so 100 million years ago, when the continents were distributed like this. But since then, the continents have shifted, the polar seas become more enclosed, and any such currents interrupted. At the other end of the world, during the same period, the Antarctic continent drifted south until it came to rest over the South Pole. There was no way now that ocean currents there could keep that part of the world warm either, and so an ice cap formed. Once that happened, the whiteness reflected back 90% of the heat in the already feeble rays of the sun. So ice now covers the whole of Antarctica and the seas of the North Pole. Over the past million years, there have been other variations, probably connected with the varying strength of the sun, and the ice cover has waxed and waned. At the moment, fortunately for us, we're in one of the warmer phases, but even so, Antarctica is still buried beneath ice a mile thick, and in the north, ice and snow extend for 1,000 miles away from the pole. Eventually, as you come down the mountain or away from the pole, the land becomes warm enough to prevent it being covered by ice and snow throughout the entire year. Beyond, the country is bleak enough. Boulders and gravel, rocks that have been ground to fragments by the glaciers and pushed in front of them. This is the tundra, and it's a land full of strange shapes and patterns. Fine muds and sands retain more moisture than coarse gravel. So when they freeze, they expand more and push the gravel away from the centre to produce these geometric shapes. A foot or so down, the soil is still frozen, permafrost, so the meltwater of the summer can't soak away, and the land is covered with bogs and ponds that often lie within the polygonal ridges, so that the land looks almost as though it's been cultivated by man. In places, the underground ice pushes upwards into a mountain called a pingo. It looks like a small volcano, but instead of hot lava in its heart, it has cold blue ice. Even though the ice relaxes its grip for only a mere 6 or 8 weeks during the summer, a surprising number of plants and animals manage to find a permanent home here. Small flowering plants keep low, for within a few inches of the ground there is little wind and the sun's rays can be quite warm.